Today, we're going to talk about our head walls and our monitoring system here at the Simulation Center. And I'm going to show you a few items that you might see while you're in the room taking care of a patient. First of all, we have our oxygen tree, which actually has live oxygen pumped through the walls that you can hook up live oxygen through and administer to your patient if they should need it. You also have medical air that you can hook up a device to that would administer air if needed during your simulation. We also have lights here on the wall that you can adjust for your patient if they're complaining of the room being too light or too dark. We have a manual blood pressure cuff and a stethoscope in the room that you can take a blood pressure on your student or your patient or each other during your simulation. We have a call light system here that is set up in every room it has a code blue that you can hit if your patient is in cardiac arrest. We also have a button that says staff assist if you should need assistance during your simulation or your patient is becoming critical at that time, you can get help. We also have our patient monitor here that demonstrates the patient vital signs. That is a touch screen that you can use to get a blood pressure, pulse ox, heart rate, respiratory rate, and other information about your patient's condition. On this side of the head wall, you have your suction unit that you can actually use to suction out goo and junk from your patient's lungs. Even though you won't get anything real out of their lungs, you can still turn on the unit and use it to suction your patient. Up here we have the thermometer that you will actually use to put into your patient's mouth. They won't bite, but you can at least put it in their mouth and you'll get a temperature reading overhead from your instructor. This is one of our hospital beds that you might encounter when you come into simulation to take care of your patients. This is one of our nicer hospital beds that is electronic in nature, so if you push a bunch of buttons, your patient will actually eject out of the bed, but you can raise and lower the head up as needed. So one way to raise up the head of the bed, there's a button on the side that has a picture of a patient head, and you will actually push the up button to raise the head up as such, and then if she says, oh, that's too far, then you push the button and her head can go back down to a more comfortable position. If she needs her feet up, same theory applies. So button that her feet go up, and then same thing, the feet go down. And then if she needs the whole bed up, or you need to do a procedure in the room with your patient, then you can push a button and the whole bed comes up to a comfortable spot, and then you can push it back down when you're done with the procedure that you're performing at that time. The side rails come down on both sides. There's a black button here on the side that you will pull up, and you can drop the side rail so you can get to your patient in a more easy position. And then to put your side rail back up before you leave your patient, you just take the side rail and pull it up until it snaps, and just make sure it's secure, and that is the same way that you would do it on both sides of the bed. If you need a CPR board for your patient, if they went into cardiac arrest, you could actually pull the headboard up out of the bed and it would actually slide underneath the patient's back for a firm surface if you should need to do CPR. And then in the end, it just goes back into the bed. And then to lock the bed or unlock the bed, there are an orange button and a green button. The green button unlocks the bed so that you can move your patient around as needed. And then the orange button locks the bed back into place. The alarm will sound, don't panic. It'll go off as soon as you lock the bed back for your patient's safety. One of the patient call light systems that you have found in your patient rooms looks like this, that is attached to the patient's bed. You always want to make sure it's in place before you leave your room. Even though the patient can't push it, you can actually use it to get help from a staff member or somebody else. This button right here, you can use to push to get help. It will actually ring into our control room and somebody will come to assist you. The other way that you can use to reach help for yourself or your patient is the call light system found on the wall in the room. There's a button here that says staff timeout or sim timeout, and you can press that if you need help. You can also hit the emergency call menu, and when you hit it, 4 different buttons come up that you can use to get help for a certain situation. We have the code blue button, which is the adult cardiac arrest. The rapid response team is if your patient is critical and you need assistance with your patient. The other is the code pink button for a baby or child that is in distress. And this other button just says return, and that just returns you back to the main menu so you can look at the other buttons. Here are the supplies that you will find in your patient room when you get ready to take care of a patient during simulation. An example is respiratory supplies, and it's labeled right there. When you open up the cabinet, there are respiratory supplies in the cabinet. They're labeled with what they are, such as a non-rebreather, a nasal cannula, and a nebulizer. All the supplies are recycled, but we do want you to open them and use them on your patient as needed. We try to keep them as close to realistic as we can when we are repackaging. Some other examples are a cabinet full of IV supplies, GI/GU supplies, and IV fluids. All of the cabinets, again, are labeled, so feel free to dig through them, look through them, and get familiar with them prior to starting your simulation. On the cabinet are medication cups and also water cups that you can use to give medications to your patients. We just ask that you don't put the pills down the patient's throats, but we do want you to go ahead and open the packages, give them a drink of water, they might be thirsty. So they're there on the counter available if you need them. I hope this portion of the video with the beds, the head wall, the supplies in the patient room has been helpful. As always, feel free to come by and chat and look through the rooms and ask us if you have any questions. Welcome to simulation.